We're streaming here on HQ. Jeremy St. Louis there, Chris Hassel here, and no LeBron there. We put together, well, not me and you, but our NBA experts put together a ranking of the top 100 players.
Yeah, they did.
And I got to be honest with you, it's September 20th. Football season just started. I talked to our producer, Noah. I was like, what are we doing with this NBA? Turns out this is the talk of the newsroom. All anybody was talking about in the newsroom today was this ranking. So let's get to it, huh?
You know, when we get Randy Brickley, one of our...
Randy had some opinions.
When Randy gets into it, then you know that it's officially on. And so there's lots of talking points with this list, and we're going to get into it. So the season starts in a month's time, but we're already into the top 100 rankings. And to help us with that, let's welcome three guys who are all NBA all the time. Our NBA champion and the coach Avery Johnson. He spent 16 years in the league as a player. Bill Reiter, award-winning college basketball writer Bill Reiter, and our resident expert on the Lakers and LeBron James as well. And last but certainly not least, bottom right corner. Number one in your hearts, though, the sunglasses on, it is Tim Doyle. These fine gentlemen are here to go over the top 10 NBA players to start. And let's look at that top 10 before we get into the breakdown. It all starts with the Greek Freak sitting there at the top. Then it's NBA champion Stephen Curry, the top 5 punctuated by KD, Jokic, Doncic, LeBron. Not even in the top 5 after almost winning the scoring title last season at 37 years of age. All right, so let's dig into this with our guys. Bill, you were part of the construction committee for this list. So how much debate was there for this number one spot? And what was it that put Giannis on top?
Yeah, and let me just say, the parameters of this, guys, is what we project these players to be this upcoming season, not what they were last year. So that's part of what we have to factor in. For me, the debate was pretty difficult. I strongly considered Steph Curry as my number one over Giannis Antetokounmpo. I treated this like I have MVP votes in the past and Rookie of the Year votes and all those Coach of the Year votes. I called a bunch of executives, a bunch of players, a bunch of folks, and basically got from them a perspective on Steph versus Giannis. I thought it was close. Every person I talked to literally said, you got to put Giannis 1. He's the best player on the face of the earth. You can put Steph 2. So I think for most of those of us that voted, and a few people I think had Durant 1 if I remember right, but it was nearly unequivocal that Giannis was number 1.
Yeah, I'm okay with Giannis being number 1, but also, man, Steph Curry, how can you argue against Steph Curry being number 1 also? I think it's a great debate. But I think because of Giannis, the way he's more of a two-way player, and obviously with Steph's shooting exploits, he can make a 3 when he gets up in the morning, when he gets off the bus. He's very scoring efficiently. But Giannis, the way he defends on the ball, off the ball, he's really more of a complete player. Steph is obviously an offensive machine. So I just think when you can guard all 5 positions, score on the post, he's got a much improved 3-point shot. We saw him in the playoffs, even against the Phoenix Suns. He made his free throws. But again, I could live with either of these players at the number 1 spot, but I'm okay with Bill selecting Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, the fun part of these lists, Jeremy, and that's why Randy's running around the newsroom playing GM is the fun part. And I think if you take Giannis number 1, like Coach said, you get both sides of the basketball. The last few seasons played in the high 60 in games. And that's something we have to talk about. Kevin Durant has not played that amount of games the last 2 seasons. LeBron James has not played in the 60-game range the last 2 seasons. So he's incredibly reliable. I saw him go extremely hard in the skills competition in Cleveland at the All-Star game. He only knows one speed, and that is full go all the time. And at this point in his career, I think this is easy. I think he is the best player in the NBA.
Okay, so, Steph Curry had the worst shooting season of his career, but he leads Golden State to the title. Coach, we know that the margins are fine. You talked about it. So what does that do in terms of the expectations for Steph this coming season, given the season that he's coming from?
Yeah, I think the expectations are, championship or bust. That's where they are now. These guys are really, trying to round out this dynasty. You got to remember, if it wasn't for Klay Thompson missing 2 years, this team is probably right back right back in the mix. And now you're getting Klay Thompson coming back off of a championship season. He's going to be healthier and more confident. Sure, they lost Gary Payton II, but Steph Curry is a problem. He's a problem every time he steps on the floor. And I know he wants to continue to win more and more championships. This is their window to do it. This is a team that's a very well-balanced team. They know how to cover for Steph Curry when he's on the defensive end. They have really solid coaching with Steve Kerr and his staff. Sure, Mike Brown, is now with the Sacramento Kings. But from a coaching standpoint, ownership standpoint, front office, skilled players that are able to pass, dribble, and shoot on that roster, good-looking team. I think Steph is ready to repeat, and they're my pick, a preseason pick to win it all, and it's mainly because of the exploit of Steph Curry. It's hard to beat him 4 times in a 7-game series.
Yeah, and let me say this too, just in defense of the difficulty of this entire list. I think for most of us, 1 through 7, this speaks, I think, just to the state of the NBA and how many great players there are. It's not just 1 or 2 guys. 1 to 7, you can make a case for every one of those guys being number 1. For Steph Curry, it's true he didn't have the best year last year, but he was coming back from injury, didn't play as many games, and we saw him get into rhythm in that postseason and obviously lead the Warriors to an NBA championship. And I think, and a lot of folks around the NBA think, that the Steph Curry that has defined this era largely, the guy that has been the greatest shooter in the history of the game, the version we certainly saw in the postseason, is the version we're going to get in this upcoming complete season. And if we get that Steph, there's no reason he can't be the MVP, and he can't compete with those other names you see on the screen to be the best player in the game.
Yeah, we're going to get some MVP picks from you guys a little bit later in the show. But TD, what about the rest of this top 5? KD, Jokic, Doncic. I mean, do you agree with this order?
Yeah, I think because Durant coming off of injury and not playing in 60-plus games the last 2 seasons. Frankly, I think he's ranked too high, and I think a guy who's maybe a little disrespected is the back-to-back MVP. Growing up, a boy, a ball, and a dream in the 80s in Queens, New York, I only had 2 posters in my room, okay? One was Kelly Kapowski. That didn't work out so well. And the other one was Larry Bird. And this poster, don't look at his legs, right? Because you will be hypnotized. Look at that. What, did he freshly shave before the poster went off? That poster was above my bed my entire life. You saw the stats there. And what Joker is looking to do is do just that. Go 3 in a row. So I'm trying to think, guys, what it's going to take for him to win a 3rd MVP. Because last year, he gave you almost 30 points a game and 14 rebounds. Okay, so now it's about team, right? Because he led a bunch of nobodies into the playoffs. If Denver finishes number 1 in the Western Conference and we see a season similar, because he's done all the individual things, now it's a team thing. Can he get Denver the number 1 seed in the regular season? Guys, that's what it takes to go 3 in a row. He can't jump. He's not that athletic. He's not really a great defender. Sounds a lot like Larry Joe Bird, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point with Jokic's skill set. Obviously, back-to-back MVPs, and that's great. I still just think he's ranked a little too high. Again, you saw Jokic, his full body of work. Look at the playoffs, right? First round, he was being hunted on defense. I mean, the Warriors tried to get him involved in every play, all right? And I'm just telling you right now, I've been around this game since 1988. And sure, some guys have gotten regular season MVPs. You go back to Michael Jordan, it's time, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone. Everybody had their turn to win the MVP. That doesn't mean they were the MVP. All right, it just so happened that they were named it. But I'm looking at, and we're going to get to it in a minute. I got a problem with this top 5. I got a problem with it. I don't care how many games guys miss. I got a problem with this top 5. So come back to me when you get ready to talk about King James.
Well, that's where we're headed next. I mean, LeBron fell in this year's rankings. I mean, he's outside the top 5. Bill, I mean, you're a LeBron guy. So I'm an older guy. What does a 37-year-old generational talent who almost leads the league in scoring have to do to get into the top 5?
He's got to play more games, at least for me. This is the exact same dilemma I had with LeBron and Kevin Durant. I'm with Doyle. I had Durant at 7 on my list. A lot of my colleagues had him 2 and 3. For me, the best ability is availability. Durant hasn't played more than 55 games the last 2 years. LeBron played 55 or 56 last year. And so it's about the ability to be on the floor. LeBron's incredible. He's amazing. But guys, who do you kick off the list? I mean, Giannis, I think, is the best player on earth. We've discussed Steph. Jokic won back-to-back MVPs. I think Joel Embiid's going to have an incredible season. Doncic is a guy that could certainly win the MVP. You throw in Durant, you throw in LeBron, it's really difficult. So for me, it's about the ability to be on the floor. I love LeBron's game. I've covered him for most of my career. If he plays 75 games this year, like every other name in the top 7, he could also be the MVP. But I don't think in projecting what he's likely to be this upcoming season, it is likely he's suddenly going to play 75 games on a bad Lakers team where everybody's frustrated as he starts to approach 40, and we've seen LeBron James for the first time ever look like a mere mortal in terms of his ability to put in massive numbers of minutes.
Yeah, I'm betting on LeBron James that he's going to play 70-plus games, okay? And some of this, yes, we need the stats and the analytics, but some of it's subjective. I cannot look at myself in the mirror and not have LeBron James as one of the top 5 players in the NBA. Come on, man. This is LeBron James, all right? LeBron James plays both ends of the floor, maybe not defensively as well as he used to. But you're talking about a guy that could potentially lead the NBA in scoring again this year, lead the NBA in assists again this year. He can very well help catapult the Lakers into the playoffs. And with this roster, if they make the playoffs, he should be in the MVP conversation with this roster making the playoffs with an Anthony Davis who was supposed to be the heir apparent and a Russell Westbrook who's past his prime. So again, man, whenever somebody's developing these top 100 players in the past, last year, the year before, 5 years ago, 1 or 2 years moving forward, you got to always have LeBron James in the top 5.
We may not see eye to
Let
eye
me just
on
jump in
Jokic.
here real quick. Sorry, Doyle, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make this point, though. Jokic played with a bunch of bums last year. I mean, let's be honest. That Nuggets team was a bunch of bums. And Coach, they made the playoffs. LeBron James had some Anthony Davis time. He had Russell Westbrook. I mean, I understand the allure of the past when it comes to LeBron. Believe me, I'm not here on HQ talking to you guys if I hadn't covered LeBron. But LeBron had a better cast of characters around him and couldn't make the playoffs. How on earth can we pretend that's not true? And how on earth can we not put Jokic, among other names, ahead of LeBron James? The proof is in what you did, and he didn't do enough last year. It's not a resume situation. It's what are you going to be? And what LeBron was last year was great, but it wasn't as impressive as Nikola Jokic.
All I want to ask my friends Tim Doyle and Bill Reiter, the Russell Westbrook that LeBron James inherited last year. Okay, that version of Russell Westbrook. Do you want that version of Russell Westbrook or somebody else on the Denver Nuggets roster that's productive, that can make shots? When you look at LeBron James's roster, Anthony Davis hasn't been consistently available. Russell Westbrook, give me Oklahoma City Thunder Russell Westbrook, then we can have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I understand both your points. You know, Bill's saying Jokic did more with less. You know, I think Avery's looking at the overall body of work and what LeBron has done is, you know, one of the greatest to ever play. So I think both make valid points, and that's why these lists are fun. I think the biggest thing we learned about LeBron today is he really bald? Because, you know, we can put supposedly somebody on the moon, okay? Like that little person, you're on the moon. But we can't grow men hair. I find this like mind-boggling. How do we take a human on the moon? LeBron's been trying everything. I watch a movie, LeBron has hair. I watch a commercial, LeBron has hair. All of a sudden today, no hair. I mean, we got to figure this out. Do not wear a toupee. Because if he wears a toupee, I will donate my entire paycheck this year from CBS Sports HQ to LeBron James, the school, the whole nine. If he wears a toupee, but it's got to be for every game. Jeremy, you know this. Your stylist is telling you not to dye it. I think it's a mistake. Do you think he's really going to go bald this year?
He does this every time.
Unbelievable.
He does this every time. He says I could put 10 years onto my look if I dyed my hair. My stylist is not going to let me do it.
Yes.
Doyle, of course you're on the hair thing. You have the best hair in the Big Ten, so of course you're all about the hair with all of us here at HQ. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, Coach. Bill, I think Coach is looking for a spot on this committee next year when it comes to doing this countdown.
Well, look, I'm not trying to go over my pay grade here, but if I had a vote, I would put Coach's vote not only on the list, but he gets twice the points the rest of us do. Coach, I think you're wrong on LeBron, but I think your voice should certainly be heard. So next year, you know what? We're gonna push it through. I can't really speak with any eloquence or wisdom about people's hair situations, but I can tell you that your NBA top 100 list belongs here, even if I think we see it a little differently. We'll do it next year for sure.
All right, let's round out this top 10 with Jason Tatum at 9, Jimmy Butler at 10. Coach, I'll come to you here. Are you satisfied with this positioning? And I mean, we talk about the margins being tight between 1 and 2. How tight are the margins here between 9 and 10?
Yeah, I think the margins are tight, and I think Jason Tatum's got to do a better job of taking care of the basketball. You know, for too many quarters in the Eastern Conference Finals, you know, he had 6 turnovers in a quarter. We saw it rear its ugly head in the finals. I think obviously he's got a ton of talent. You know, I think he's got a whole nother level or two that he can take his game to. You know, when you look at Jimmy Butler, you know, has he maxed out where he is now at this stage of his career? How much better can Jimmy Butler get? I think the ceiling is a lot higher for Jason Tatum. The ability's there. This is really, really close. I do like Tatum at 9 and Butler at 10, but I think Tatum's going to continue to improve on the defensive end, continue to play with more swagger, but he's got to do a better job of taking care of the basketball.
Yeah, Coach, I'm with you. I mean, both these players are exceptional basketball players who are almost certainly going to have great seasons, but you said it. Jimmy Butler, who's amazing, has hit his ceiling, been in the league longer. We know what he is, and what that is excellent. Jason Tatum, I think last year was at that level, and he is clearly capable of going to another place. In one of these lists in the next few years when Coach is voting, he could easily be a top 5, a top 6 player. He does have to protect the basketball. He didn't play well, we know, in the finals, but it turns out we heard that he was injured. This is a very young dude who has started to taste superstardom. I think it's very likely he makes a really big jump, and I think that's a big part of the reason, ever so slightly, for most of us that voted, he's ahead of Jimmy Butler on this list.
Bill Reiter, Avery Johnson, Tim Doyle helping us break down the top 10 of the CBS Sports Top 100 NBA players here on HQ, the full list over on CBSSports.com. Gentlemen, we are not discussing this. We're going to come back to this shortly, but let's take a look at the top 10. Let's recap it. Giannis is number 1. Steph Curry sitting at number 2. Very tight margins between those two, but because of Giannis's bigger skill set, wider skill set, shall we say, he gets the number 1 spot. And a lot of debate about LeBron James not being in the top 5. Coach doesn't like it. Already secured himself a spot to help make the top 100 in a year's time. Well, we're not done discussing the top 100. When we come back, we'll break down some of the other storylines on the list. And there are a few. One of those being Ja Morant outside the top 10. We are discussing the top 100 players in the NBA. We've taken a look at the top 10, but here's just a quick recap. Giannis at number 1, Steph sitting at 2. Then you have KD, Jokic, and Doncic rounding out your top 5. Yes, no LeBron James in the top 5. He is at 7. Jimmy Butler rounding out the top 10. So let's shift the focus and go to 11 through 20. Led off by Paul George. Ja Morant is in there as well at 12. Damian Lillard, and rounded out at number 20 with Karl Anthony Towns. So let's break down some of those major storylines outside the top 10. To help us do that, we have the coach Avery Johnson here, NBA analyst and broadcaster Tim Doyle, and one of the constructors of this list, NBA writer Bill Reiter. Okay, number 12, a guy on this list is a guy who became a bona fide star last season in Ja Morant, and at 15 is a guy who saw his stock drop at the end of last season. Bill, compare and contrast Ja Morant versus Devin Booker here.
Well, I'm much higher on John Morant than I am Devin Booker. I mean, Devin Booker has been extraordinary. I want to see that level of excellence when he doesn't have the version of Chris Paul that has defined the point guard position in part for the last 10 years and more. I think John Morant should have been a top 10 player. I mean, there's a multitude of people who voted, all very qualified, all with different views. I had Ja at number 10, and guys, I thought really long and hard about pushing him ahead of names on my list like Jimmy Butler, even like Jason Tatum, because again, it's projecting what they're going to be this upcoming season. I think as good as he was last year, he's going to make an even bigger leap, presuming that he's healthy. I think he will be. So for me, there's no question that John Morant is a better player this upcoming season than Devin Booker. And again, we're talking about, at least for me, the 10th best player on earth versus the 15th best player on earth. These are great players. We're not insulting anybody here, but I think Ja's going to define the game in part for many years to come. And I think he takes a step toward being a top 5 player this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree halfway with Bill. I think Ja's going to make the step. I would have had Ja in my top 10 or at the 10th spot. I would have been okay with that. But I think Devin Booker is going to be very motivated this year. And I think he's going to take a step. I would have had Devin Booker around the 12th spot. I think, with last year being embarrassed at home, Game 7 against the Mavericks, tremendous amount of momentum going into that game. Chris Paul helped obviously seal the deal against a Pelicans team when Devin Booker was coming back from, injury or being out. So I think he's going to be motivated to get back to the finals. He's had a really nice off season. I've heard about, some of his preparation, that he took his off-season preparation to another level. Obviously, he signed the new Supermax contract. DeAndre Ayton, even though there was some contentions, with that renegotiation, I think he'll be motivated and play better on both ends of the floor. Chris Paul has had some history with injuries, but I think this is the season that Devin Booker really puts it together. He'll be in the top 3 in terms of the conversation for the MVP voting. And I just think he's going to have an amazing season. But I'm also bullish on Ja Morant. I agree with Bill. I love Ja Morant also.
I had Ja Morant last year at 50-1 to win the MVP and snuck into that conversation because all of the wow moments. And I had inside track on Ja Morant because it was a cold, chilly night there in Murray, Kentucky. And I was calling his game at Murray State alongside the one, the only Chris Hassel. And I saw a man, well, then he was just a boy, but he was transforming into a man, and I saw the basketball IQ. The athleticism I knew was sick, but he knew how to play, and I went, oh, man, if this guy learns how to shoot, he's going to be the next Derrick Rose. He's going to be the next Russell Westbrook. So the game ends. I turn to that guy right there, and I go, what are we doing after the game? He goes, I have a hotel room in Murray, Kentucky. I go, no. Here's what we do. We're driving to Nashville as fast as we can. It was 2.5 hours. Deer were on the road. It was like a video game, right? And all I was thinking about was Ja Morant. And then we got to Nashville, and go ahead, Hassel. Tell him what happened. Go ahead. Tell him what happened. Shirt off.
Your version is, his version is that I took my shirt off. That never happened. We did share a hotel room, though. I appreciate you letting me stay in your little suite there at the Nashville airport. We didn't get much sleep, I'll tell you that. Bars closed there, like 4 a.m.? So we were Murray, Kentucky, by the way, I think that's a dry county up there. So that's why we had to make the journey to Nashville.
Okay, well, sleeping on the couch in the suite with Tim Doyle. All right, good stuff. Okay, just outside the top 15 sits Anthony Davis at 16. Given what we've seen from Davis over the past 2 seasons, is this too high or is this too low, TD?
I think he's done. Did I just say that out loud? That's just how I feel. Like, Bill, I don't see like him putting in the work. He doesn't have that personality. Remember, here's a guy who grew like 42 inches in 1 year. He was like 4'11", then all of a sudden he was 6'11". I think he's immensely talented. At one time, when GMs could have a number 1 pick in the NBA, he was the guy. I just think like he's won a championship. He's got paid. He's going to just run up and down. Not everybody is motivated, and he has a hard time staying on the floor. So if he gives you anything anymore, I'm like frankly surprised. So when I think of Anthony Davis, I'm like, man, immensely talented, but never maximize that talent.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Tim. I mean, I don't know the answer on Anthony Davis. Outside of Ben Simmons, I don't think there's a bigger and more important question mark in the NBA than AD. Because if you're wrong, Tim, if he is motivated, if he can stay healthy, if he refocuses because LeBron makes him feel bad about himself, whatever it is, we all know he can be a top 5 player. But you're right, he could be done. On next year's list, he could be 40 or 50 or 60. And that's presuming that he's healthy, right? We're talking about whether he's just motivated, whether he's focused, whether he's taking that massive talent and translating it into actual excellent basketball. And the guy could do all those things and still be hurt. I had him at 17, but for me, guys, this is a question mark vote. Because I don't know. I don't know what he's going to be next year. So I think most of us hedged. 7 if things go great, 40 if things go badly. 17 sort of felt like the right place to put him. And I think over the course of this season, the Anthony Davis we see is going to tell us the Anthony Davis the Lakers have for the foreseeable future.
Well, we saw James Harden taking in the Philly demolition of the Vikings last night. By the way, lots of discussion about Kirk Cousins' play during the break there. He headlines the 21-30 group. Now, also in this group, Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, Drew Holiday. This is an interesting group here, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've had some guys, obviously, Middleton got injured last year in the playoffs, and that really hurt Milwaukee Bucks' chances. Zach LaVine re-signed with the Bulls. Brandon Ingram, he had a breakout year 2 years ago with the Pelicans. Rudy Gobert with the big trade from Utah to Minnesota, and Bradley Beal signing a max contract with the Wizards. But I'm okay with James Harden leading this group. I think when you look at James Harden, it's, again, what we talked about with LeBron James, is a little bit overall body of work. If he can stay healthy and get back, I've seen some videos of him playing here in the offseason. He's probably played more basketball in this offseason than he's played in the last 2 offseasons combined. We'll see how that translates to the court. Now, when he's on, he's a guy that's capable of, getting triple doubles. But I don't think he's going to ever get back to the Houston James Harden. But, 24 points a game, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, that travels well. That plays well at home and on the road, and that would take a lot of pressure off Joel Embiid. So I'm okay with James Harden leading this group, from 21 to 30.
Yeah, most of those names, I think, belong on the tier that we're looking at. But I got to tell you, the names that jump out to me are Donovan Mitchell and Bradley Beal. I think Donovan Mitchell has the opportunity because he's going to be at a really interesting and I think competitive Cavaliers team where he's going to jump, right? If you play for a team that matters and things are going well and you're on the limelight and the media's paying attention, you get more love and adulation. I think that'll be true for Mitchell. And I think it speaks to frankly, the travesty that is Bradley Beal at 30. And my colleagues are allowed to vote however they want, so am I. I had Bradley Beal all the way at 30. If Bradley Beal played for this upcoming Cavs team like Donovan Mitchell's going to, if he played for the Suns, if you swapped him out for Devin Booker, with his offensive output, with the way that he can put the ball in the bucket, with the numbers he's put up over the years, the guy would easily be, I think, a top 15 or top 17 player. So for me, Donovan Mitchell's got the best chance to make a big leap because I think Cleveland's going to be really, really good this upcoming season and certainly fun and entertaining and people are going to pay attention. And I think Bradley Beal is not where he belongs because he's on a bad team, but that's not the same thing as being a bad basketball player.
So we get some upside with Donovan Mitchell as we head into the 2022-23 season. Okay, in the 41 to 50 range, talking point here is LaMelo Ball ranked below Ben Simmons. TD, what do you think about this?
I think LaMelo Ball is going to be in the conversation with Luka Doncic as they get up into their late 20s. I don't think we've seen the best of LaMelo Ball. He's only 21 years old. Last year, shot almost 40% from 3. He made, on average, 3 threes a game. I just think he's getting better and better. And frankly, I think he's going to age better than Doncic. I think he's more explosive. Obviously, right now, Luka's a much better player. But I think we talk about ceilings. How much better can this guy get? I'll say this right now. I think he's a lock to win an MVP one day. He's got amazing basketball IQ. He's brought a sense of excitement there to Charlotte. I just found out Charlotte had a team like 2 years ago when he got there because I'd never watched their games because they weren't interesting. Because Jordan was bringing in nothing but ACC players and they weren't winning. I think that he should be somewhere in like the 30s range or even the late 20s. Maybe I'm projecting down the road, but he has such an amazing basketball IQ. He makes guys better. And now that the shot is consistent, he almost shot 90% from the free throw line. This guy is a budding superstar. And remember I said that. Doncic, LaMelo Ball, we're going to be arguing who's the better player in about 7 to 8 years.
I love LaMelo, and I had him a little bit ahead of Ben Simmons. In defense of Simmons being ahead of LaMelo Ball, which wasn't my vote, but I get why the list came out that way. Ben Simmons is really hard to figure out. Is he a head case? Is he going to physically be able to play? Does he want to play? Is he the guy that was the Rookie of the Year, an all NBA player, Defensive Player of the Year candidate when he actually played, arguably the best defensive player in the NBA a couple seasons ago? Or is he the dude that won't play, sits on the bench, passes up on layups? I mean, guys, Simmons is the biggest question mark on this entire list in the entire NBA, and it's not like he's plying his trade in Charlotte or in Indianapolis. He's doing it in a place that is the biggest market in America, and if he's great, his team can win an NBA championship, and if he's a disaster, maybe they're not going to have the talent to do it. It's the most dysfunctional team in the NBA, so I understand why Simmons was going to raise some eyebrows wherever he went, because he's a Rorschach test. You look at Ben Simmons, you can see whatever it is you think you know about the NBA.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of LaMelo Balls. I agree with Bill. And also, Tim, I would have him in the top 40, even the top 30. This kid is a hooper. He loves to play basketball. This kid can, find people. Kind of reminds me of a younger version of myself. But he can really pass the basketball. He can beat you with the pass. He's shooting a higher percentage from three now. He's always a threat when he's on offense. He'll continue to mature and take the challenge on the defensive end. I remember seeing this kid when he was back in 7th grade in a small Matchbox gym in Las Vegas. And his dad was telling me that he was going to be a Hall of Famer and a superstar way back when. But he's continued to bring life to Charlotte. And I just think he is a kid that we can have more confidence in with his game on the court, that he's going to look at the basket, as Bill alluded to. He's going to be a threat offensively. He's going to be a competent basketball player, and he's going to be available. This kid wants to hoop. He wants to play basketball. He brings a lot of excitement and joy to the fans in Charlotte and fans all around the world.
Okay, so that takes us to the halfway mark of the list, but let's go all the way down. I mean, he's not at the bottom of the top 100. That belongs to Grant Williams, but a guy whose name has come up in this conversation, Russell Westbrook, is a contender at 98. Hassel doesn't even think he should be on the list.
Nah.
Hassel was adamant.
Get him out of there.
He shouldn't even be on the list. So what's more surprising, that he's this low on the list, below the likes of Franz Wagner, or that he's even on the list at all, Bill?
Well, I can tell you that having done this list, trying to do 90 through 125, because we all went to 125, is excruciating and painful, and the margins are very, very thin. And so for me, I had Westbrook, if I remember right, in my top 100, barely. The guy is capable of being, and this isn't what he wants to be, the 60th best player in the NBA. If, like every other name you see there, he would play a secondary role or the third role on a team, or be a guy that only plays at a high level for 18 minutes because that's what he's getting. The problem with Westbrook isn't that he can't hoop, it's that he can't hoop at the level that he used to, and he's not willing to accept that. So I understand why he is where he is, because in theory, there's the potential through his own change of heart, or he's just forced by a new situation, a new coach in LA, that he's going to play a different role and thrive is an overstatement, but thrive compared to the people that are 90 to 100 on that list. I get why Westbrook's there, but I think you put him 98, you put him off the list, it's the same story, and that is the quick, painful, humiliating demise of a once really sterling career for a guy now who's a punchline.
Yeah, it's just before I met my wife, Bill, you know what used to work? Biting of the upper lip when I dance, and then like a snap here and there. Like that worked 10 years ago. Westbrook's game worked 10 years ago that this was gold. Okay, now I got to start adjusting my game. He never adjusted his game, right? He never learned how to shoot the three. Like, he's still playing like this old school bad mid-range jump shot. The usage is crazy. You see his stats. Because of his stats, you got to have him on the list because, he's amazing at putting his numbers together, and there is something to be said for that. But, Coach, I'm not sure what your dance moves were back in the day. I'm sure it was a little Earth, Wind, and Fire. Maybe September. That was the first song of my wedding. But I think the dance moves are a little bit old, but he has to be on the list.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any compelling argument whether Westbrook should be on the top 100, but there could be one if he isn't on the top 100. I think this is more of a body of work, because he's been so good for a long period of time. This guy averaged triple doubles. He's been MVP, but I just think this is a situation where he's got to be a complementary piece, and we'll see if he accepts that role. Durant has high aspirations for him this season to really attack the basket, get back to playing Westbrook type of defense. I'm waiting to see it happen, but I just think the compelling argument is he's just not the same player. And we'll see if Westbrook is even starting for the Lakers come the halfway point of the season. I've always been a fan. I think he's been an incredible asset to the game of basketball. But at this stage of his career, we haven't seen that his game complements Anthony Davis and LeBron James for a long period of time in games and throughout the season to see if they can get back to being a playoff team.
Tim, did you happen to notice how Coach sidestepped the dance move question?
I did, but we were out recently in Dallas, and Coach is the man. Okay, that's all I got to say is Coach is the man. I go out with Coach, Jeremy, alligator arms. I don't pay for anything. I go, Coach, you win a couple championships, you're the man.
I have no doubt. All right, let's talk about the Celtics. 7 guys in the top 100. Warriors have 5. I mean, the 2 finalists from last year. Do you see that as an accurate reflection of those teams, Coach? Coach, you got me? No, I don't know if you can hear me. Tim, what about you? Do you see this as an accurate reflection of kind of what they put out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. I mean, Brown and Tatum are emerging superstars, and with the old guys in the Warriors, their basketball IQ is off the charts. Bill, I think that's the thing that, the Warriors, Doncic, Luka, LeBron at his late age, Durant, these guys really have a high sense of understanding how to play the game. I think the game is not taught at a very high level anymore, and everybody just runs high ball screen. These guys still move without the ball. They defend. Poole's a superstar. Best thing that happened to Jordan Poole was he got to see how Klay Thompson and Steph Curry work, not in games, in practice, and that has made him the player that he is. He got lucky. He went to the right team, and that is what professional sports is all about. But I think we forget, Bill, that Memphis, John Morant got hurt in that series. And I think that Memphis, over the long haul, is deeper. I think they needed that kind of learning experience. Last year, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. took his lumps in the playoffs, and I think he's only getting better. I think there are other teams out there that have a bigger upside. Who knows what we're going to get from the Clippers? We barely mentioned them with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Where are they going to be at? But my pick to win the championship next year is going to be the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love the Grizzlies pick. I'm gonna go with the Milwaukee Bucks probably, but you're right, and I do think the list reflects, if we go back to the Warriors and the Celtics, each of those teams. The Celtics have one of the deepest teams in the NBA. It's why they made the run they did. And Tim, as you said, they've got a superstar, I think, already emerged in Jason Tatum and an emerging superstar in Jaylen Brown. And the Warriors they're a really good basketball team. I mean, Klay Thompson, we'll see what he's going to be. Draymond's getting older. He still can have an impact. But the reason the Warriors are in the same class as a deeper Celtics team and a deeper Memphis team, their new rivals, is because Steph Curry is Steph Curry, and he's the best player on earth, or according to this list and my list, the second or the third, depending where you put them. But I do think each of those lists properly reflect the depth of those teams and the advantages, the different advantages they have. Boston, there's more depth, and for the Warriors, there's just more excellence because there's nobody that can outclass Steph Curry on earth in the postseason over the course of the last few years, other than maybe the guy ahead of him on that list, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Coach Avery Johnson back with us. So, Coach, I'm going to come to you first here. Who's number one for you, the MVP here?
Oh, my pick to win the MVP this year is the guy that says, you know who I am. Similar to what Serena Williams said when I went to the U.S. Open to watch her play when she was asked the question, about why did you have so much confidence? She said, because I'm Serena. Kevin Durant says, you know who I am. You guys know I'm KD. I'm the man. I wanted to be traded. I couldn't. The owner, Josiah, for the Brooklyn Nets didn't cooperate. So you know what? I got one better. I'm going to play in 72 games this year. I'm going to lead the NBA in scoring. My team's going to win 58 games. You know who I am. I'm Kevin Durant. Coming back with a vengeance this year. My pick is Kevin Durant to win the MVP.
For me, it's Joel Embiid, and if I didn't have an actual vote, I'm not sure what the rules are here, I would put money on it. I don't think I'm allowed to since I vote for it. In part because and Coach, I think you hit on this earlier, there are sometimes narratives or highlight reels, or maybe it's certain things that happen that impact voters. And it's not easy to vote for these awards, but I've certainly seen my colleagues over the years, I think, been way too heavily influenced by narratives. Russell Westbrook, to pick on that poor guy again, did not deserve, in my opinion, the MVP he wore several years ago. Everyone was so enamored with the triple-double that he averaged. I think Nikola Jokic, Coach, as you talked about, he's going to have, I don't see a scenario where he wins the MVP this year. Maybe it actually was you, Tim. He's just not going to, even if he should, because voters tend to get tired of the same guy again and again and again. And I think that leaves a huge opening for Joel Embiid. And I actually think Embiid complaining last year about the fact that he didn't win and what do I have to do and the sour grapes, as annoying as I found it, I think it's going to be effective. I think it's going to stick in the back of the brain of a bunch of voters who don't want to look like they don't know what they're talking about. So if Embiid has the season that I think he will, and I think the Sixers could be really good this year, I like Joel Embiid to get the award this upcoming season that frankly he didn't deserve last year, but that he did a really nice job arguing on his own behalf for.
After that explanation, I think I like Bill's pick better. Bill's a great call. I think the Sixers are going to have to win the East. I think Harden can't be fat Harden in Houston. He has to be good Harden, motivated Harden, because he's at this point right now in his career where he can't go out all night and then bounce back. Bill knows that because him and I struggle with that as we get older. Like, he used to be out all night and then go out there and get 50. Well, now he can't do that anymore. Does he transform his body? The fact that he took the contract that he did, he's going to be motivated. I think the Sixers are going to have to win the East. But Embiid, no doubt, is one of the best offensive players I've ever seen, especially for his size. I'm going to take Doncic because every year he's the favorite, and every year he comes into the season out of shape. I get it. I like Nick and Sam's too, okay? Avery Johnson knows this. I have 2 martinis, blue cheese olives, okay? 3 olives, never an even number, FYI, okay? But 2, I'm fine. 3, I get sloppy. Okay, Luka, what we need you to do is put down the knife and fork. Stop eating so much. I think if he, Coach, refocuses his body or just focuses his body and takes it into the season at top shape, I believe he's the best player, offensive player in the entire NBA. But it seems like every year he's like playing himself, Coach, into shape.
Doncic plus 475, Embiid plus 550, and Coach with the long shot, KD, at 9-1. NBA analyst Tim Doyle, NBA writer Bill Reiter, and the Coach Avery Johnson discussing the CBS Sports Top 100 NBA players, which you can view in its entirety and debate like we've been doing over the course of the last 40 minutes or so and in the newsroom all day over on CBSSports.com. Take a look at those notable dates. Of course, training camp's opening right away, 27th. So that is 7 days from now. And then the preseason begins on the 30th. Regular season begins on October the 18th. The opening game, Philadelphia at Boston, followed by the Lakers getting to watch Golden State raise the banner in the late tip that night.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.